Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for this hearing, and thank you to our witnesses for being here today. It's an important subject. You know, when in the Houston area, just outside my district, Texas Children's Hospital, 80% of their patients are impacted by drug shortages. That's the whole hospital. They currently have 101 medications on back order, 350 medications on allocation, where they're limited in the quantity that they can produce. 8 of these are chemotherapy agents that are used in first-line treatment of pediatric cancer. So I want to, in as little time as possible, because this is a much longer conversation, but Mr. Sardella, I want to figure out how the supply chain looks with active pharmaceutical ingredients in the best way that we can. 85% of APIs are from foreign countries. 60% of our finished dose forms are from foreign countries. And, you know, a lot of people wonder why. So what is in an API? Just a variety of other chemicals? Is there like a top 3 chemicals that are in APIs? Can you describe that really quickly?
Yeah, and you bring up an excellent point. The API itself is the chemical that produces the medicinal effect. It is the most important element in that capsule, tablet, in that drug. But the remaining elements are elements that allow for either the transport through your digestive system or other type of elements to allow it to survive and be effective. Mm-hmm. And quite interesting, what you bring up is something that we've seen. It's API. Even we've heard capsules or the caps of a bottle will be in shortage and have a supply chain challenge, which may prevent, we always think of just the active, but all these other areas, the incipients, et cetera.
Yeah, but I want to focus on APIs for a second. So an API is a chemical, but it's a chemical made up of other chemicals.
Correct.
Right? And where do those other chemicals come from?
Oh, yeah.
You know, and go ahead.
Yeah, so we are reliant on what would be called starter materials. And these are the original chemicals that allow us to make those APIs. Majority of them are carbon-carbon, carbon-nitrogen, carbon-oxygen bonds. They're the foundational elements. To build a sustainable API, we need to also allow for the creation of starter materials here in the United States.
And this is, I do have a point to this. So those starter materials are widely available in the United States. Mm-hmm. Right, they're generally derived from petrochemicals. So like benzene, which is like a natural gas-derived chemical, is used to make ibuprofen. Mm-hmm. I didn't know that. We have a lot of natural gas and benzene. Like these are easy base chemicals to get. So we are exporting these base chemicals to other countries so they can make the APIs, so they can send back those APIs to us to make the more advanced drugs, the final product, and then we complain about our supply chains. What is stopping us from cutting out that middleman? Is it a policy issue? Is it a market issue? What's happening there?
It would be having economically viable domestic API manufacturers that can be the purchasers of those starter materials. Okay. That would be the key to its consumption and use here in the United States.
Nobody has had that business idea?
Well, the APIs, a majority of the generic ones are not economically viable to produce in the United States, and so they've been offshored. And so that demand, that U.S. domestic demand.
Why aren't they economically viable? What do they state as their reasons for not opening up shop?
Yeah, they'll cite lower labor costs as one reason. They'll cite economies of scale. Government incentives that these other countries have received to build their facilities. Even right now, India is subsidizing new facilities being built so that they wouldn't be reliant on.
Well, in a very short amount of time, we did get a lot out of you, so I appreciate it. But I want to move on, please, to Laura Bray. Thank you for being here with Mother's Day coming up and the problem we have with especially cancer drugs for kids. So, real quick, what roadblocks are currently in place at the FDA that really create the problem you're trying to solve? What would be your top 3? Or 1?
So, I mean, I think part of the problem here is this is a very, very large risk solution for any one member to take on, right? So there are a lot of barriers everywhere. There's not just barriers in one member. There is a lot of risk of any one member taking.
Totally get that, but we have to focus on one thing, and I like to focus on the FDA. So, like, just from your perspective, what would change what would be a better way the FDA would do business that would help what you're trying to accomplish? It's okay if you're not, if it's.
I think we all every member needs to come to this table because it is so multifaceted. And there are true and real reasons for every single policy that has been put in place, but we keep putting policies on top of policies of broken marketplace. And so I think we all need to be at the table saying, here's the solution, here's what my part can do, here's what my part can do. And so to pick one thing from one member to do, as my colleague said, it's such a dynamic marketplace, it would quickly become extinct, right? Yeah. We need to all be at the table.
We need solutions, and so one of the things I would point out.
So the solutions are, we've got a 6-point plan. It's first, align the incentives and motives. Everybody needs to be at the table aligning those motives. It's employing prediction and forecasting, followed by being ready to supply the American people. Then we have to empower the collaboration of this multifaceted supply chain. Patients need to be at the center of the solution, so we're ending shortages instead of mitigating them, and we need to establish an entrance and exit ramp so that the marketplace can evolve without patients getting left behind. That's the steps, and it's multi-layered.
Gentleman yields back.